Hello, everybody, and welcome to this episode of Be the Wolf. Today, I want to talk to you about how to learn what you need to do, like what you really need to do, and how to generate ideas that will get your business to the next level. Now, of course, we know how to learn, everybody knows how to learn, but you might not be learning the right way. And by learning the right way, I mean learning in a way that you actually intake and receive the information that you need to get to the next level, to get something different than what you have. So if your business or your life isn't going the way that you want it to, you're going to want to watch this episode or listen to this episode because you're going to learn how to learn. You're going to learn how to create ideas and generate ideas that will get you to the next level instead of having you just do these little hops of lateral moves. And I know a lot of business owners out there are doing the lateral moves. Oh, let me implement this new strategy. And you work really hard, you get it all set up, and then boom, lateral move. Doesn't take you any further. So in this episode, you're going to learn why learning a new money-making strategy won't grow your business. You're going to learn how come the better you get at something, the more you actually stunt your business growth. And you'll learn what you need to do to generate the ideas that will actually get your business to the next level. Are you guys ready? Let's do it. Okay. So first I want to start with why learning a new money-making strategy won't grow your business. So you have a success zone. You've heard me talk about that. You have a decision-making strategy. And you may have heard me talk about this. You also have a success zone. And your decision-making strategy is part of your success zone. So the way you make decisions is based on the way you experience the world. So it takes into account what you believe. It takes into account your perspective and how you see things. It takes into account what you think is scary or what you think is good or bad or right or wrong. And because you have this decision-making strategy that's in your success zone, and your success zone is set, by the way. You can expand it, but your success zone is set, and it basically creates the amount of success that you can have. And right now, your success zone is set at the amount of success that you currently have. Because if your success zone were bigger, you would have more success. It's simple. Now, if you're doing a money-making strategy or a business strategy and you think it's going all right, I guarantee you there's probably a way you can optimize it. And whatever little crack you might have in that money-making strategy, that business strategy, you will have in the next strategy you implement. And so this is why creating new money-making strategies, implementing new business strategies doesn't usually help you get your business to the next level. You might create more income, but you'd also end up spending more money. So essentially, your business would stay at this lateral position. Now, whatever your crack is in any given money-making strategy, you're going to subconsciously implement that crack into every business strategy you do. For instance, if you don't like doing admin tasks or the fine detail work. I use this example a lot because I don't like doing admin tasks or the fine detail work. So it is something I needed to work on because I would subconsciously set up my strategies so that I could avoid those things because I didn't want to do them and I had resistance to doing them. And so that resistance caused me to not take the time to really look at my metrics and set up systems so that my metrics were readable and I could adjust accordingly. And so, if you have that resistance and you don't deal with it, you are subconsciously going to create the same problem in every strategy that you implement. And so, this is why learning that money making strategy, a new one, will not actually get your business to the next level because you're putting an anchor, if you will, the same anchor into every single strategy. And the key is to figure out what those specific anchors are. And often it is in the thing that you're resisting. Now, the other thing I want to teach you, and I want to teach you this right now, is how to set yourself up for learning in a way that can amplify your success. And we're going to do this right now, this exercise, so that as you listen to this podcast, as you watch it, if you're watching a video, you can absorb the information and learn it in a way that will amplify your success. See, what you don't realize is we are typically, instead of learning, we're typically filtering for how this information fits into our way of navigating through the world, fits into our current success zone, fits into our current decision making mechanism. So we're filtering for how it already fits into the way that we see the world. And that learning does not help you get something different because how you already see the world is what got you to where you are now. And if you're not happy with your success, your business success, or your life success, you've got to open your perspective. People always talk about having an open mind. This is what it really means. But to do it, you've got to set yourself up so that you can actually have the open mind and learn. So we're going to do a little exercise. Now, if you are driving, you still may be able to do this exercise. So just listen and follow along. Now, I want everybody to pick a stationary point far in front of you somewhere. Could be on a wall, could be the tip of a mountain on a horizon if you're driving. Now, if you are driving in traffic, do not do this. If you are walking in a crowded space, do not do this. In order to do this exercise, you need to have a wide periphery vision where it's safe to look at a wide, expansive view. So if you're driving down a road where there's not a lot of traffic, you can see you have a wide horizon. If you're walking down the street, and there's not a ton of people crowding you, you can see that you have a wider horizon. In those circumstances, you can do this exercise. Obviously, if you're sitting still, you can do this exercise. So choose a stationary point up ahead of you and take a look at it. Just focus on it. Focus on that stationary point. And so in this moment, you're focused on something. This is the opposite of being in a great learning position. So from here, you're going to expand your periphery. Like just widen it, widen it. Widen it so wide that it's almost like you can see behind you. And just hold that position. If you're watching a video, you can keep that wide position and just lower your eyesight so that my face is in your vision, but you also have this wide periphery vision. If you're walking, keep that wide periphery vision. And I want to tell you how powerful this is. That people say that sometimes people are visual learners. They could be an auditory learner, like they learn from listening. And I always thought I was a visual learner. And then one day I realized all these books I had been listening to on audiobooks, I retained the information so well, so much more effectively than if I had read them. And I thought, oh, well, maybe I'm an audio, an auditory learner. But what I realized later when I learned about this learning position that I just taught you is that most of the time when I would listen to the audiobooks, I was in this wide perspective learning position. So where I was just wide, soft eyes, where I could see the widest perspective of things possible. So that's kind of how I walk around New York City in that position. It's just a natural thing for me to do. And it helps me to see kind of everything that's going on. And just that helps you to see everything that's going on. So that learning position helps you to see everything that's going on. And so because I had been in this learning position while I was listening to those audiobooks, I retained the information and I was able to see things from a broader perspective than I was able to before. Okay, so now that you're in the learning position, I'm going to teach you about how to idea generate and how to really learn the things that will get your business to the next level. So we've already set you up for the learning. Now, the idea generation, the thing that you need to understand is there's a beginner's mind and an expert mind. And the expert mind is narrow. The beginner's mind is wide. So just think about that learning position that we did, wide perspective. Expert mind is such, you're an expert right now of living the life that you have. And that viewpoint of the world is inside a box of your expertise. And we could also call it your success zone. So when you're in an expert mind, you think you already know the answer. When you're in a beginner's mind, you do not think you know the answer and you're open to something different, something that's outside your current viewpoint of the world. Here are some examples of when you are in the expert mind versus the beginner's mind. The beginner's mind is a learning mind. The expert mind is, I already know how to do it, so you can't tell me anything different. And you may think when you're learning, you're listening to a book, listening to a podcast, any of these things, you may think that you're in that learning mind, but so often people are in the expert mind that I already know how to do it. So here's an example. If you are trying to kill two birds with one stone, you are in the expert mind, not the beginner's learning mind. What you are doing are you are trying to see how you can reuse something for something else. So for instance, one of my old programs for my coaching clients, I wrote it. It took a lot of time, a lot of effort, and there's great information, super powerful. But when I was writing my new program, my Be the Wolf program for entrepreneurs, and even though a lot of the concepts were the same, I kept trying to pull and look at that old information and think I could save so much time if I just pull information from the old program and put it in the new program. But the truth was that perspective was not valid for the new stuff. That was me trying to reuse stuff that didn't really fit the old program. I thought I could reuse it, and I thought those perspectives were valid, and they were, but they weren't valid for where I was trying to go with the new program. So if you're trying to kill two birds with one stone, that's a prime example of you being out of the beginner's learning mind and into that expert. I already know how, and I'm just going to keep creating the same thing over and over and over again. You can, however, reuse things, but you have to break them down. If you want to get something new, you have to break them down and change their shape. So I used a lot of the concepts, but I broke them down and I changed their shape to create something new. You, for instance, if you have a house that you pull down and you want to use the reclaimed wood, that is great, but you're probably not going to use the reclaimed wood in exactly the same way you did it before, because then you're not creating something new. You're just creating a carbon copy of what has already happened. Another example of being outside of the learning mind is you're trying to figure out how. If you want to go to X when you're currently at Y, and you need to know how to get from X to Y, well, your thinking has gotten you to X, and everything you know now has gotten you to X. If you had what you needed to get to Y, you would already be there. And so you needing to know how to get from X to Y is impossible. You could know the first step, but you're not going to know all of the steps to get there, because if you did and you could truly understand them, you would already be at Y. Does that make sense? So wherever you are right now, everything you know and the way you have viewed the world and everything you've learned up to now has gotten you here. If you want to go to Y, maybe it's your $10 million business and you have a $1 million business. If you want to get there, what you know now cannot get you there, which means you cannot figure out how from this point. You can figure out one step and then another step and then another step and another step. But that need to know all the steps to get there is a sign that you're being in that expert mind that's shutting down your possibilities. And you will, if you follow that path, you're going to just create the same thing. You're going to end up right back at X, because if you follow those steps, you might get a little farther, because maybe step 1 and step 2 will get you a little bit closer. But if you follow all the steps, the exact plan that you set out right now while you're at place X to get to place Y, you won't actually get there. Because again, if you knew how to get to Y, if you had the information within you and the capability within you to get to Y, you'd already be there. So you can only do 1 or 2 steps ahead. Got it? Okay. So figuring out how is not going to get you there. You can look to where you want to go and you can take a step or a 2, but that's it. Trying to figure out the how is closing the blinders of your beginner's mind, of your learning perspective, that will allow you to take the steps that will actually get your business to the next level. For instance, when I was little, I learned to tie my shoes when I was 2 years old. Children usually learn when they're about 6, because that's when their brain can handle the complex loop-de-dee-loo to tie a shoe. But I tried and I tried and I tried the way that I was supposed to do it, the way that somebody showed me how to do it, but I couldn't do it. And if I had this idea that that's how it had to be done, I would have never learned how to tie my shoes. So as a 2-year-old, I let go of this idea that this is how it has to be done, and I figured out a new way. If I had stayed with the limitation of this is how you do it, I would have never figured out how to do it at an age when my brain, in theory, was not yet capable enough to do the standard loop-de-loop way. So the new thing that you want, again, you'd already have it if you had what you needed, if your current perspective was broad enough to get you what you needed. If we're focused on the how, we're not going to get there. We just need to know where we're going and trust that that could even change as well. So focusing on where you are right now. When you're focused on the how, it's also oftentimes because you're trying to find a shortcut. You're trying to find a way to jump over maybe some uncomfortable things that you don't want to do. Remember earlier I talked about those little pieces of the strategy that you don't really like to do. Oftentimes, when you're trying to figure out the how, you're trying to map it in your own world so that you can jump over the thing that you don't want to do. Trying to figure out the how and being very concerned also means that you're not open to receiving the information that's going to actually get you to the next level. Your focus is super narrow as opposed to what are we doing with our learning perspective? We're keeping it wide open. Okay. Another sign that you're not in a good learning perspective, that you're in that expert mind, thinking you already know and have all the answers, is you're trying to fit, here's the analogy, the square pegs in the round holes. Now, to actually fit a square peg in a round hole, what do you have to do? You have to cut the corners off, which means that you've lost some of the information. So if you are trying to say, oh, this thing is just like this, it's just like this other thing I know. If you're doing that, which people always do because most people are tracking how something is the same or how it's going to fit into the reality that they already know, you are cutting off valuable information that's probably the information you need and you need to be open to get to the next level. You're trying to fit that square peg in the round hole, and the only way to do that is to cut off the corners. Well, the corners are where the meat is. The corners are where the juice is, the stuff that you need to learn that will actually get you and your business to the next level. So if I'm in a training and I'm walking in with, this is how I do business, this is how it works, and sure, I'm successful. And I'm sitting there looking at, oh, okay, they're doing that strategy. Oh, and that's just the way I do that. That's just the way I do this strategy. Oh, they do this strategy. Oh, I can see how they do that because that's how I do that. Okay. And then you aren't looking at the thing that's different that will actually take you to the next level because you're trying to fit it into the box of what you already know. I remember working on what was it? It was a webinar. And I was studying somebody else's webinar and why they were doing these things. But what I was doing, I was trying to fit it in the box of what I already know. I'm like, oh, she's doing this because it's hypnotic and it does this particular thing that goes with the way the subconscious mind works. And that must be why it's working. And the truth was, yes, sure, those insights were valid, but the pieces I needed to be looking at were not the things that fit into my little model of the world and to my reality. And so I missed the meat of why her webinar was working and mine wasn't because I was trying to fit it into the box of what I already knew. So filtering for what confirms what you already know. That's exactly what I was doing. I was trying to filter for how what I must be doing is right. And therefore, I don't have to change anything. Because the thing is, true learning requires a new perspective. And a new perspective means change. And what do people hate more than anything? People don't like change. I say this quote a lot because it's so true. Tony Robbins says that people change when the pain of staying the same becomes greater than the pain of change. People don't like change. And so to truly learn, to really learn something that will shift your business, it requires you to have a new perspective. Keeping this wide perspective, everybody, if you started to focus in, widen that gaze again. And that new perspective means change. And so when I was looking at this webinar, I didn't want to change. I wanted to confirm why what I was doing was right so that I wouldn't have to change, so that I wouldn't have to get uncomfortable looking at a new perspective, looking at where I might be lacking. And that's a big one why people don't want to change. So bending things to fit into the way I already do things. That's what I was doing. So if you're bending things to fit into the way that you already do things, you're losing the thing that's going to take it to the next level. I once helped out a friend of mine. They were in a lot of turmoil and they were just struggling, and I wanted to help them. And so I gifted them some work. We did some work together and I taught them how to do the work so that they could shift and get out of this loop that they were in. And they had profound experiences after the sessions we had. But when I checked back with them about how things were going since then, because they seemed to be right back in that similar state of panic and everything was going terribly. And I said, well, are you doing the processes I taught you? And they said, well, yeah, I'm doing it like this. And I bent it to fit into the way that I do this other thing. And the thing was, they took what I gave them and they bent it and molded it into what they were already doing. And because of that, they weren't getting the results that we got in the one-on-one sessions because they were trying to fit it in the mold of what they already do. And fitting it in that mold of what they already do just created the same results that they already had. Like, sure, I have these new tools, like learn these new things, but if you're doing them in that framework of what you already have done before, it's not going to work. She was trying to put the square peg into the round hole. She shaved off the corners, and the corners were the thing that made the progress substantial in the one-on-one sessions. And when she would do the work on her own, made it lackluster. Like, sure, she had a little relief in the moment, but that was not enough to take her to the next level. So the expert is trying to put the new information into their already established boundaries and parameters. Now, inside your success zone is everything you know or think you know. It's how you see and believe the world to be. It's the framework that has helped you create what you already have. And it's what you filter your decisions and your actions through. Remember, I talked about that decision-making mechanism? Well, that's part of your success zone. And that expert way of thinking is inside your success zone. And to expand your success zone, you have to change that perspective. You can't do it from that expert mind. The more you try to fit the new concepts and strategies into your current success zone or framework of how you see things, the more you will stunt your growth. You'll have all this knowledge and think you're more of an expert because you'll have more evidence to why your world is the way it is and why everything you think and believe is the way it is, but you will not shift anything. So people talk about, oh, I just love learning. I love learning. Well, you've got to really look at, how are you learning? Are you learning and expanding your perspective of how you see the world? Are you allowing the learning to change your experience of the world? Or are you making the learning confirm what you already know? And most people are making it confirm what they already know. Your expert status is the edges of your success zone. So if it's already in your success zone, you haven't actually learned anything. You have to have an aha thing to actually learn something. And we all know you have these places where you're like, oh, that's why this is thing that I already know is the way that it is. That's not a true aha. That's not true learning. That is just using the knowledge that's being presented to you to confirm what you already know. A true aha, a true learning changes the way you respond, react, think, view the world. It gives you a new perspective. And that blows open your success zone a little bit wider, which means when your success zone is a little bit wider, you have the capability of creating something different than what you already have. Your success zone is the thing that dictates the life that you have, the amount of success that you have. And if you expand it, then you can expand the life that you have. You can get something different than what you already have. Now, if your perspective were working, your success zone, the size it is now, if it was working, you would already have what you want. So if you don't have what you want, if your business is not going the way that you want, and it's been that way for a little while, your success zone is not big enough. Your current perspective of how you see things is not wide enough to hold the new thing you want. So again, most people are filtering to confirm what they already know to be true. But this kind of learning will never get you to the next level. So for instance, when I was growing up, I was really good in school. And the thing that I learned very young was to track for what people wanted from me. And I did that as a survival mechanism. I would track what my mom wanted from me so that I could stay safe, because otherwise it meant my butt would get beat. So my habit, my filter, and the way I looked at the world is that I need to give people what they want so that I can be safe. So in school, I was always tracking for what the teacher wanted. So later in life, when I was running a business and working with different coaches, and I was working with a marketing coach, trying to figure out how to market my business, who to market it to, and I could see that the person was frustrated because I didn't quite have the answers that they wanted. And so I was not conscious of this. This is happening subconsciously, and you all are doing these kind of things subconsciously. So I was subconsciously tracking that and realizing that they were not getting the answer that they wanted, and that was making them feel a little bit uncomfortable. So I pivoted and gave them the answer that they wanted, and I just ran with it. This was who I was going to market to, and it was not the right decision for me. And I think a lot of people are doing that in their businesses. They're tracking for what other people want and not doing what's right for them. And because of that, they're failing. They're not having the success that they want because their framework and perspective of how they look at the world is to look at for what other people want. Another example of this is I was having coffee with a friend, and we were talking about how emotions drive decisions. They grabbed their glass of water and they took a sip of water. And I said, "Well, what emotion drove that action?" And they said, "Well, my lips were a little dry and I wanted to make my lips not look dry." And we discerned that they were concerned about what other people thought of how they looked. And that drove the decision to take the sip of water. And so that's part of their decision-making mechanism, is that they will do things to make themselves look a certain way for other people. And you can guarantee that if this person owned a business, they would be making decisions from that place, not consciously, but it's part of that decision-making mechanism. It's part of their expertise, making decisions from that place, rolling in that success zone is what's gotten them the life that they have. So to shift this, we have to open our perspective and create new ideas and to be open to learning for real, not trying to fit everything into that perspective we already have. So I want to talk to you about how to generate ideas that will actually get your business to the next level. So this exercise that I taught you in the beginning, opening that visual perspective, that in itself is great. When you are super focused on something, you are looking to fit things into what you already know. That's a narrow perspective. And super focus often happens in a state of stress. It is a kiss of death to your business. So the more stressed you are, the more focused you are on the problem, the less you can be open to see something new that will shift the problem. You're focused on what you already know, and what you already know is your expert status, and that's going to keep getting you the same things over and over. The ideas that you come up with when you're stressed, that I know a lot of people, oh, I'm an idea generator. And so they'll have a meeting with people and there'll be pressure where it's like, okay, come on, we got to come up with some ideas to make this work. And they're like popping all these ideas because their system is in a little bit of stress. And when you're stressed, you're looking for the solution that will solve the problem right now. Well, the right now problem solving is not going to get you the bigger, better business ideas that are going to create something different than what you have right now. So if you're a super great idea generator, you need to notice if you're doing that under stress. Because if you are, those ideas are going to keep creating the same results that you already have. Now, to really create that idea generation that will get you something different, you can walk around in that expanded perspective. I know plenty of entrepreneurs, they spend a couple hours a week just doodling in a coffee shop where they just don't do anything in particular. They may doodle for an hour and then one idea will come and that's it. But that idea is outside the box of what they already know because they've calmed down, they've gotten out of that state of stress, they've taken the pressure away, and they're allowing that new information in. They're having a wider perspective. Even drinking alcohol can do this. It can soften your focus. And if you're a little stressed, you know that when you drink, you feel a little less stressed. Now, I'm not saying go out and drink and do that so that you can create better ideas. But we all have had that time where we're sitting there with our friend at the bar and we've had some drinks and oh my God, these ideas are so great. And then later we're like, oh, I'm not going to do that. That is a little too scary, too outside the box. But those are the ideas that would get us something different. I have a friend who takes a long train ride just for this purpose a couple times a year. So they take a train ride for a few days and then they just hang out. They can't go anywhere. They can't do anything. They're just on the train. And so these ideas generate and that gives them the framework to what to work on. Long walks will do this, cleaning the house. If you're working constantly and you're constantly focused on what you're doing and trying to do all the stuff that's going to get your business to the next level, you're not going to be able to create something new. To do that, you've got to open the perspective and be open. You have to take a hold of the square peg and not try to put it in the round hole. You need those corners in order to shift something, to make something happen that's different. Okay, so we got it. We learned why new money making strategies aren't necessarily going to grow your business, and you learned how to shift it so that they will. And you learned how to open up your learning so that you can actually learn the things that will take your business to the next level. You've learned how to create ideas that will take your business to the next level. And if you want some more information, some more stuff to learn, I've got a free guide out there for you, the 3 secrets the business gurus never talk about. And I want you to take in this information with that learning perspective. You can grab that at bethewolfgift.com. Everybody open up your browsers, do it now, because you're in this learning position. So you're open to things that can actually shift your business, your life, and get them to another level than you're at now. And so if it seems like a good idea, you want to do this now, open up the browsers, type in, and that step is one step towards creating something new and different in your life. Okay, everybody. Thank you for listening. I hope you found a lot of value in this, and keep practicing that learning perspective, because it will, if you allow it to, it will totally shift the way you think, your perspective, and help you get to the next level and expand your success zone faster. All right, we'll see you next time on Be the Wolf. And remember, when you unleash the power of you, humanity evolves. I'll see you later. Bye.